Um, well, the energy has been very playful lately, and I have just noticed that uh, there is this thing that my husband and I do, and then it just like he'll randomly, it just comes out.
Yeah.
Um, and it's kind of a secret, but it's not. We actually have language that we speak with just sounds. Like I can understand like just from his utterance like what he means. And we used to have cats, they're buried in the backyard now, and literally if something's not working, he'll just literally make like this small little cat meow sound, like, oh, something just didn't work this morning. He's like, and so it's just this kind of like silly language we have, and it's just it
Yeah.
just lightens the day. It just lightens the day. And he just put something new on his toothbrush today, and he was like really happy and made some sound. It's just, I love how his little boy just comes out, and it's just very sweet.
I love
Yeah,
it. That's such a
yeah,
sweet story. Thanks for sharing. I can share
yeah.
something back so you don't feel so out there, But my husband and I mean, we're German, but I lived in Ireland for a long time, and he was in a relationship where they spoke English. So, but his English isn't, like because he didn't practice it in an English speaking community, it's sometimes a little bit, off, I feel, even as a German. So as I keep teasing him about it, he keeps saying, "Well, this is how the Scottish would say that, or from Wales." People would say it like that.
I'm Alexandra Kreis, and you're listening to Outer Travel in a Journey. In my own search for self-understanding, I have met people from all walks of life. I bring to you a taste of these encounters.
Welcome to Outer Travel in a Journey. On my show today, Kathleen Whalen. Hello there.
Hi.
Hi. Did I say that right? We usually check with people. Is it Whalen or yeah? Is that
Oh, it
right?
is Waylon. Yes,
Whelan, yeah, yeah. Because Whelan is such an Irish
it is
surname.
my Irish name, actually.
Is it?
Mm.
Oh, do you have Irish ancestors then?
I do. I have mostly German ancestry, and then my father is first generation German Irish son, and yeah,
Wow.
and so the name is Irish, and an uncle uh 3 4 generations ago changed the Wayland to Whelan, or the Whelan to Wayland.
I was saying it's the other way
Yeah,
around. Oh,
yeah.
oh, wow. Yes. Oh, that makes sense that we get so attracted to each other. So, Kathleen Whalen from Seattle is here today to speak to me about something that she is hosting since a very long time, the Conscious Calendar, which is a feature of Vedic astrology. And there is like a lot of words in there that people wouldn't know. So we might take this from the top. So first of all, astrology and daily calendars. Everybody wants to have a horoscope, I was thinking these days. Everybody doesn't want to have the stupid kind of, oh, the Leo does this. And, like they don't want to have the magazine type of horoscope anymore these days. But you got a very, very special calendar. I haven't found anyone who does that in.
Thank
So
you.
tell
I
us.
I try and be an innovator in everything I do.
Yeah.
Yeah, the calendars came out of a natural progression of just helping a friend of mine. And they, in essence, I'm looking at the energy of the day around the world from Hawaii to Australia.
Yeah.
And that energy, that early hour before sunrise that we may talk about, um, actually shows us the energy of the day. And in Vedic astrology, there are actually 27 regions of sky. So there's 27 different energies that are all good for something. And when there's certain alignments that come together, that's a little more supported for outward activity, collaboration, work. For those of us who run companies, it's great for communication. Those are also going to be the days that any Vedic astrologer will pick out of the whole year to say, oh, these are potential wedding days or launch days of some sort. And then, according to the individual, you can then even dial it in even more for what we call green days. So
Yeah.
the energy is about.
And I got to stop you there because there was so much language in it. And I heard that so many people are listening to these podcasts and they have not a clue, but they're interested in getting to know these things. That's why I invite you. So Vedic astrology, just a short notion on Vedic astrology and 27 regions of the sky. So I think a lot of people would have stumbled across that part.
Yeah, well, Vedic astrology, the word Vedic comes from the Vedas. So the what we'll call ancient, but the Vedas are 5,000 to 7,000 years old, and they are the ancient oral lineage from India. So this ancient knowledge is understanding the cosmos, the rhythms of the sun and moon, the natural rhythms of people, and these living tomes give us all the indications of how to live a balanced life as an individual on a spiritual path and among people. So that's really what they are.
Yeah, and I have had many readings in astrology, Western and Vedic. So for those who know a little bit about Western astrology, can you say the difference? Because it's about nodes and everything. So maybe you can put that a little bit clearer too. How would you know the difference, in going to one or the other?
Well, there's three main differences. The sky map is just a little bit different. And so the sky map is basically in Vedic astrology or Eastern astrology is really similar to sidereal astrology. So some people might have heard of Western sidereal astrology. That sky map is pretty much the same. It's what you see when you look to the sky from the earth.
Yes.
In Western astrology, they're using the Tropic of Cancer. It's, only those who know Western astrology know what I mean. So the map is a little bit different. It's about 23 degrees different. So there's a possibility that your sun sign may be a different sign, which can be disorienting, but actually the degrees between all the planets is the same.
Yes. Yeah. And this is so funny because I'm just saying this from a personal point of view, because I was with a Western astrologer and he was indicating which areas in the world are good for me. And it blew me away because it was so, spot on. And then I spoke to a Vedic astrologer and he was much more clued into what was really happening in my life. He was just more on the dot. And that doesn't mean, that you can predict the future. It's all about how you behave, of course, in your current life. So despite what the stars are telling you, it's still in your hands, just to clarify that.
Completely. The dance of fate and free will. We have it both in the every single moment.
Yes, exactly. And so that can happen. And what I want to put out here, and maybe you can support that or not support it, like if you are likely to get advice from an astrologer, and you've been to a Western astrologer, don't shy away from the Vedic astrology because it can sometimes lift some mysterious kind of things that are not clarified in the Western astrology, or vice versa. Like if you've been to a Vedic astrologer, you might want to go to a Western to see, maybe there's a missing puzzle piece. That's what I wanted to put out here in the first place.
Always be searching. Always be searching.
Yes. And now we're coming to what you designed this, Kathleen, have you?
Well, that's what I was starting to get into. And you normally don't mention the 27 lunar mansions right off the bat, but because of the world you come from, and I kind of just jumped into that. But the most ancient matriarchal map of the heavens, it's connected with goddess, are these 27 regions of sky that existed from the Indian point of view way before the sun signs. So these are connected with our ancient, it's an unbroken lineage of our experience on Earth as human beings. And this is all related to the moon. So at the very simplest level, the calendars are a way to help people stay aligned with their personal and universal rhythms, biorhythms, because the moon has a different energy as it's waxing and then as it's waning. And just, I'd love to share a principle that people could use whether they ever see the calendar or not.
Yeah, please.
Yeah. So one of the principles is that rather than even waiting for the full moon, it's actually 6 days, 6 lunar days before and 6 lunar days after the full moon is the fullest light, right? So it's those times of the month that we do more of our outward activity. So if we're going to have a party, if we're going to have a wedding, you could actually choose some of these days yourself and use your intuition. And, perhaps it's a weekend day around the full moon. So those energies are more for flourishing between people. And then in and around the new moon is the quiet energy for our personal practices to deepen.
So, Kathleen, I haven't introduced you properly because you also have an extensive knowledge in Ayurveda and Chinese medicine and acupuncture, as far as I read up on. And what it brings me to, what you said, brings me into this notion of Ayurveda, like if women, bleed with the moon and, they would exactly do that because they should be bleeding on the dark moon, actually. And the full moon is therefore the most to express themselves. So, hey, these things align so well. And sometimes they don't align so well in life. We get kind of thrown into different waves of things and then we don't bleed as such, and it doesn't follow that through. But yeah, if you are on your ovulation cycle, that makes totally sense, around those full moon days, definitely, to interact with people. Strongest energy ever.
Oh, and the beauty of our bodies, right? To be in sync with the cosmos and our place in the solar system. Like, we're designed like this. We've evolved like this. How beautiful. Isn't it incredible?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's the magic.
Yeah. And we're running so much against it, like we're trying so much to function beyond all these rhythms, and then we want advice from those rhythms and then we don't live them. And that's what you're trying to give, nevertheless, with the idea of giving different energies in the month, certain colors on your conscious calendar. That's a product again that Kathleen Whalen has produced. And so how does that work?
Well, it's so simple. You don't even have to know astrology. I mean, that's what's amazing. It's so funny. I mean, you were asking, like about funny little things. I get these stories all the time. The colors of the calendars are so simple. Green, yellow, red are the basic colors. There's also purple in there and a couple other little indicators. And the colors are what you would imagine. Green is go, yellow is be aware. There can be more distractions on the yellow days. And the red day, there's usually only one a month, is the self-care, self-nourish day. So it's very simple. And I have clients whose, husbands or children are like, they're like poo-pooing it or they don't, whatever. And all of a sudden, they'll just be like, I don't know, Mom, was it a red day? It felt like a red day. Like they've never looked at the calendar, but they're like, just like guessing what the colors are because they had whatever day. And they're like, I don't know. Oh, it felt like a green day. Honey, was it a green day? I get these reports back all the time.
I must say, I probably, if I would talk to you on a regular basis, I would be that. I've been, as I said, I've been following your calendars and your advice and emailing. And I'm always, at times I don't want to have advice, and when and then it's like, oh, that must have been a green day. And then I'm looking for one of your emails and it's like, yeah, that was a green. It's like that, yeah.
And that's the way to use it, right? Like some people use it every day. But it's really to cultivate your own intuition. And it's not about any system being forced on you. It's that, because sometimes green days have so much energy that some people are like, wow, that was almost too much. Like it was so much that it didn't feel like, oh, the perfect day, because they felt like they had to be called to do a ton of things and they felt overwhelmed. Yeah. So it's really meant to allow you to check in. Like the yellow day, I feel like is the the most crucial one to almost be even more aware of is because those are the days, I'm not kidding you. I could give you examples where I'm like, I go against my own calendar, like, oh, it's a yellow day. I'm going to go ahead and try and run that errand. 5 hours later, I'm still stuck on the other side of town in a storm, in a traffic jam that couldn't get to a bathroom. Like, just hilarious, you
Yes.
know?
Snap. Snap. That's what I wanted to say, because I've been trying to, as I've been inviting you to this podcast, I thought I make it a practice to see how I relate to these days you're initiated. And that was exactly my on take of it. Every time I hit a yellow day, it was like, yeah, but I should have known this is a yellow day, so I should have taken more time. Don't, jam pack my calendar with these things. And it really felt like that. And may I ask you, how do you stand on that side of, because the consciousness creates the reality. So, on one hand side, you're saying you're reading this from, we still don't know exactly how that works. Maybe you can give more insight.
Oh, glad to. Yeah.
Yeah. And then on the other hand side, it is like, if somebody kind of keeps tapping you with these kind of notions of, but this is a green day, like you start to think that way. So yeah, what's your on take on?
This is huge what you brought up, right? Because I know a lot of people are like, I don't want the calendars because I don't want anything to tell me or interfere with my experience. I can co-create my reality. And this is true. Our consciousness is what helps us perceive the world and cultivate our experience of the world. It's really meant to help us shift our perspective into awareness mode, into observer mind. It's not imprinting on us that it is a yellow day or a green day. It's, oh, I'm having a bad hair day. Things are scattered. Oh, I can take the changes in the day so much easier when I know it's a yellow day. I just laugh my way through the day, because it's just like, oh, well, that happened. It's yellow day, and so it allows for perspective. And it's not about imprinting anything. It's to allow us more space in our day to almost shift our perspective and be able to have more resilience. And if a green day wasn't the perfect day, it's all the more reason to look back and say, well, where were the silver linings? Because there really are some secret gifts that came on the green days. Yes. Yeah.
I thought about that. Thank you for the advice on that one, and the free gift to us right now. It's I like what you're saying, since my big subject is becoming present, like present in being. And present in being is, to me, is a method of becoming more aware and more grateful and more in the moment. So what you're giving me with what you said about yellow days is exactly that. It's taking the I, me, mine out of the conversation. And maybe for some people, it's first of all a relief to say, like, okay, this wasn't an ideal day on a planetary level. And on the other hand side, it kind of allows us to not always think we should be fully functioning, and also pass back our burden to the greater consciousness, to the universe, and become more servants, as they say. In some lineages, they talk about becoming a servant to the greater consciousness. So, yeah.
Oh, I love how you just said that. It is. I mean, ultimately, it is about actually cultivating our faith. That's the irony. I'm using this social science to kind of help sort of give an awareness of what the energy might be. And you get to interact with that in your unique way. And I love so much of everything you're about in cultivating the awareness of being, because that in and of itself is the richest part of our experience of being human.
Now, I think we're ready to talk a little bit about Brahma Muhurta and how you distinguish one day from the other. Are these two things connected?
They are. And what I often do is, and that's so wonderful. I mean, we started this by you saying you speak of this often. How
Yeah,
beautiful.
yeah.
That is just so then your listeners know about Brahma
I
Muhurta.
don't think they would know, but the people who work with me know about Brahma Gupta,
Ah,
you know.
okay.
So we need to
Okay.
lift the myth around like what is it, that Indian word. So do you want to start? And I can
Oh, I want to, yeah, and I'm really looking forward to hearing what you have to say about it too.
Mm,
Um, yeah, so I mean, I actually describe it more as the golden hour. It's considered the time of day where we can some describe it as where we can create ourselves and recreate ourselves. It's Brahma, one word for God universe, and it's the golden time of pure stability. It's the time of morning. It's technically a muhurta is just 48 minutes. That's the definition. And and an indication of things happening in the moment. When I do a muhurta, I'm checking the moment I'm speaking to someone. So it is the moment of God and the moment of us co-creating ourselves. So that happens 2 48-minute cycles before sunrise. And in that time, Robert Svoboda describes it this way, that it's the time where we can unwind some of our karmic patternings.
mm,
And we are not meant to do during that time, but just sit. And if someone has chronic illness, they can actually just wake and sit during that time and watch the pre-dawn, and that light in that time of day will literally help them unwind some of the genetic karmic patterns. It's so beautiful.
that is truly beautiful said. I often perceive muhurta, and I don't have an extensive Sanskrit knowledge, you know, but from how I've encountered it, it's almost like this needle hole, you know, like you can pass through into something beautiful and God-given, you know, that's how I often describe it. Yeah, can we say that? Yeah, okay. She's
Great
nodding.
description.
Yeah, and from a scientific level, I don't know whether you caught up on this, but this particular time we're talking about this moment before the sun rises, no matter where you are. So it's not, I mean, in India, it would be around 4, you know, like you're saying 3 to 4, 4:30. It depends where you are. So if you're like in the Western Hemisphere, you probably have different entrance times and they move along. But the thing about it is that the oxygen, they've measured the oxygen levels at that time of the day in a study around asthma and bronchitis and all these lung affecting diseases, and they found that at that moment in time, the air is the best, no matter where you are, whether you're in a city or in the countryside. And that is to me so revealing to the point why we call it God-given entrance point, you know, like Brahma, you know, Brahman comes in. There is almost like this thread between the world, you know, the bigger universe and what we are living in the three-dimensional world. Yeah, you can say the never, you know, like any, it's like the veil. That's how I would describe it. You know, I'm lacking words in joy of that we share this knowledge and are both very convinced of it and witnessing it. I suppose you've witnessed it yourself, right? As powerful as it can be. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Yeah. Oh my God, that's so beautiful. Yeah, it's that hour where the veil is lifted, where the energy is more palpable. And that's amazing. I did not know that. I knew that melatonin levels are at their absolute peak just before that.
Mm.
And I didn't know that about the oxygen. So that's literally like on the planet and in the human, both.
So we've talked about Brahma Muhurta, and then you talked about that there is a point in the day that you can see as an astrologer, which I was asking, is that the point we're talking about how the day is gonna be, or what are you looking at to tell people, okay, this is going to be more a red day, this is going to be a yellow day? What is it that determines that for you?
I actually look at a range because it depends who you like. There's a couple lineages out there that say, look at Brahma Muhurta for the energy of the impulse of the day. Others say it like traditionally, it is the moment of sunrise. So I often look an hour and a half to 20 minutes before sunrise and the moment of sunrise. I look at that range in the day because depending, the moon sometimes actually shifts just before that into a different lunar mansion or a different constellation. So I'm looking just before sunrise as the simplest form, just before sunrise. And what's amazing is that is the creation energy of the day. So literally our bodies shift at the moment of sunrise. The dominant nostril changes according to the lunar cycle. That's a whole other teaching in and of itself. So I'm basically looking just before sunrise, 20 minutes to an hour and a half before, and where the moon is at that moment in its relation to planets. So basically, green day is when the moon has enough light and the moon is aligned with Jupiter, Venus, or Mercury, all of what we call good giving energy in Vedic astrology. And when the moon then is at its darkest, the day before the new moon, that is the red day. It's the lowest mental and physical energetic energy of the day, of the month.
And and that brings me back to, like you mentioned two things earlier already, and that was that some people say like the Brahma Muhurta happens like an hour and a half before. Some say it's on sunrise, and that science is catching up. And to me, that comes into a thread of like, we as human beings, we do have the capability of noticing things ourselves if we fine tune into it. And it might be, that you perceive things differently than somebody else. So the whole debate in all the Vedic science, like Vedic is science, like happens from a point of experience and observation, from a really deep experience and deep observation. And that brings these kind of, I wouldn't call them conflicts, but how would you call them? Discussions or
insights, back to
and so everything you do on your spiritual path is not about doing the right thing. Never, ever, ever. And nothing an astrologer is doing is about like, this is the perfect thing and I'm being guaranteed, like this marriage will last forever. This marriage might be the right marriage for you to wake up to something, for example, right? And so you never know what's the bigger plan. That is something you should take along and with you from this conversation in the first place.
Again, that faith and trust building, right? Trust building in self, because like the first principles of everything to do with all of the ancient religions in the world is, what is your subjective experience and what are you observing? It all comes back to yourself. Just what you were saying is, what is your observation? And that cultivates the presence that you've been talking about.
And these observations can be just supported and padded through, for example, looking at a calendar like yours and saying like, oh yeah, that aligns with how I experienced the day, Well, that might align a little bit. As more as it aligns, you might look out for these days in the calendar as a tool, which people do like. And or what is your experience since you have created it and you dealing with people?
It's that beautiful combination where I find that this is the luck of the luck and the gift that I feel like we both have of our purpose, being able to work with people on these subtler levels that are also about concepts we may have of either that we get to bump up against how we really perceive the world. If we're someone who thinks that there is some perfect right way, then we often perceive the calendars as, oh, this is the answer. And then when we don't get our answer, we feel conflict. And it doesn't matter what our experience, whether we had the perfect day on the green day, it's about reflecting back to you. What is your experience of that? Now, let me explain something else about the green days, where a lot of people misunderstand them. Very often there is confluence, there is flow, there is luck, there is kismet, there is connection on green days. Now, that's just in general that there's actually 4 different kinds of green days. So a flowing green day, you're going to feel the flow a lot more. An establishing foundational green day is actually almost feels stuck, because things you do on that day give you creation ability to create something that lasts a long, long time. It's a very different kind of energy. In general, though, the actions we take on a green day have a greater karmic fruit at some point in the future. That's the actual principle of the green day. So I'm picking a muhurta, I'm picking a day that says, when you act in alignment with the energy of that day, oh, it's a day of flow, it's a day of changes. So I'm going to move a tree in my garden. It's a day of changes. It's got to do with vehicles. I'm going to buy a skateboard today, right? So those are alignments of movement. I'm going to change my workout routine or my yoga routine today. When we act in alignment with the energy, there is less friction. This is the actual principle of the calendar. Is if on a red day, which is a quiet day, I try and have a big party, I can have the party. I will be probably exhausted the next day or a month later. So it's just about, do you want to work with the energies of the cosmos, or somehow kind of use more of your essence to work against them? And then that principle of what we do on the green day flourishes more at some future point, according to your individual karmas. So that could flourish a week later, months later, lifetime later. But if you are doing certain actions of collaboration and on purpose on green days, you're leapfrogging those energies, and they begin to build. Wow. So yeah, so it's not to trick the universe or anything. So that's very different than being passive and saying, oh, the green day is going to be fabulous, let me receive something fabulous. See how that's very different? Yeah. And I find the most people are disappointed who are the passive people. They're like, oh, the green day wasn't perfect or whatever. And I'm like, well, what did you do on the green? Did you spread kindness more? Were you someone else's answer? Did you, right? Because we can receive answers on green days too. Sometimes we're the one giving someone else help.
Anyways, wow, I have a feeling we could do like 1 million podcasts together. We haven't even touched upon, like the daily rhythms and the biorhythms and all the other work you're doing.
Well, that was so sweet of you. I mean, to talk about the calendars, I thought we were just going to talk about maybe daily biorhythms and give, you know what I mean, as just a wonderful conversation.
Yeah. Yeah, I wanted to give that to other people, because I thought it was so special, and it's as you say, everybody can use it. You don't even need to know when you were born, and a lot of people have or struggle with their birth time and don't go to astrologers because of that. That's why I wanted to bring it forward, but also see the alignment of the biorhythms in it, so yeah, we could have another conversation of what does that mean. But maybe you can say briefly something about it, and then we can give the listeners, food for thought to take home with them.
Oh, I will share one of my favorite pivots. So because we naturally are aligned with lunar rhythm, whether we know it or not, if we ever feel dissonance or like something's off, or the joke I used to tell is if you got on with a customer service and you were calling and you didn't get like a helpful person, or you weren't getting the answer you wanted, then you can actually notice which nostril has more breath through it. And you might even have one side that's blocked. Simply blow through the side that is more blocked and Then, as you go to get up, step with the same foot as the side of nostril that has more air in it at any point in your life. When you get out of bed, when you get out of the car, when you get up from the chair, when you walk from the house, if you want to step in resonance with who you are in that moment, you can get up from the floor, you can get up from any moment in time and simply step with the foot that is on the same side as the nostril that has more air in it. You will shift the dynamic of the moment. You will be back in rhythm with you and who you are. And then that energy may change in another 2 hours. So you would then be aware the next time you step out. But if you just do it when you feel dissonance, you can immediately shift the energy. That is one of my favorite gifts to give people. If I never speak with them again, like that is an easy gift.
Wow, beautiful. Thank you, Kathleen, for all the gifts you brought today and talking about the calendar. And I know there is more depth in our conversation than we are revealing here, but I think for the dear listener, I've been asked many times, can you clarify the language you're talking so fluently in? Because it so easily happens when you have the lingo, you can get taken away into the depths. So I hope for you it was fun, Kathleen.
Oh my gosh, amazing. We touched on so many topics and such deep ones too. Wow, you are amazing.
Thank you for making this podcast full and bright. And yeah, if you haven't seen Kathleen, or if you're listening, just go back to our video. She sits in this beautiful room with Dhanvantari on one side and the yellow in the back. And it's all like I'm talking to sunshine here. Anyways, yeah, have a wonderful day, Kathleen. And the rest of you too who are listening, and I see you on the next show.